All right, so here we are, another edition of the Newport This Week video podcast series. I'm Bill Bartholomew, today joined by Sean Skelly, an ice sculptor. And we were kind of just offline, and I was like, well, what's the proper title? Is it an ice artist? Like, how do we frame it? And I mean, that pretty much hits it on the nose. You're a Rogers graduate. You've been doing this, you said, for a long time. Talk about this process, this unique art, and how it is connected to Newport Winter Festival right now.
Well, basically, I learned when I was the chef at Salve. That's when I started. It's a dozen, well, more than that, years ago, when I was the executive chef at Salve Regina. And we used to use them for different student events. And when they had the orientations for the incoming classes in the summertime, we did quite a few of them. So the director of operations there at the time had some experience with it. I had a little bit of experience from culinary school. Most of them getting into this is a culinary background. Most guys that do this usually have that kind of background. So we also had an ice carver that was a corporate chef, and he came down and he was doing them. And the director's like, I see you do all the buffets with the veggies and the fruits and the different carved melons and whatnot. And he goes, I know you can do this. Do you want to learn? And I was like, yeah, I did a little bit in school, but nothing serious.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how I started. And again, I was doing it at one point, we were doing 2 or 3 a week sometimes.
Wow.
So I got practice. It was, I got paid to learn how to do this sort of thing, which was kind of cool. I eventually took a class from like a world champion carver. My wife at the time found this ad somewhere for ice carving, and the gentleman's name was Mark Dawkins, and he's from California, and he is basically one of the only people that have ever won in Japan against the Japanese, who are basically the best. By and large, on average, those guys win these big competitions. That's tradition. A lot of the tools are made there. They have an extensive background. So this guy, Mark Dox, I took a 3-day class down in New York City on the top of the Marriott Hotel, out in the open because it was wintertime. And we did a couple of days, like a day and a half of practicum, like just sitting in the classroom, talking about tools, talking about method, how you do this, how you do that, the snow filled, the logos, how you can reproduce, pretty accurate graphics on clear ice with snow fill. And then we went up on the top of the building in the middle of the winter, and everybody had blocks, and we practiced what we were taught in the class. It was fascinating. I mean, literally, there was one point where I walked up to the side of the building and I had my toes hanging off, and I was looking all the way down at. There was no gate, no fence, no nothing. But it was fun. It was a unique thing. I got to meet a few different people, mostly chefs, although some people do it as an art.
That's really cool. And having it as, I mean, it is an art, and it's one of those, there's a lot of tradition behind it. What kind of innovations are taking place right now in this art form that maybe haven't been there in the past?
Well, I know that, and again, I've been doing this for some time now, and I've been doing it with modern equipment for some time now. It evolves. There's traditional pieces of equipment you use, big hand saws. They're very unique looking. Again, mostly Japanese made or European made. Although I think there's a couple of companies in the United States who use these, who produce and sell these things now. But there's chisels, shavers, big saws, those are the hand tools. And now most, if you go to see any contest, it's almost, I'd say, 90% power tools.
Mm-hmm.
The chainsaw, everybody knows the chainsaw. There's a rotary grinder, which is like a Dremel, only a little bit bigger, although we do use Dremels and rotary grinders for different. The Dremel's more detail work, and the rotary grinder, it has like a large spiral cut or a straight bit. Carbon steel is what you want so it doesn't rust, and that can really shape and detail the ice. A power sander, which is basically an angle grinder. Again, both these tools are used predominantly in auto body for
Mm-hmm.
shaping and shaping and repairing damaged cars. So that you equip it with a heavy sandpaper, like a 16 grit sandpaper on the grinder. Again, a rotary spiral cut bit on the straight grinder, and then the chainsaw. Then you use heat guns, blow torches. I've seen these guys at some of the contests. They have a like a grill for your outdoor grill propane tank, and they have what they call a leaf burner, and it's basically something used in yard work where you burn leaves with it. It's a big blowtorch, and basically they'll use this. When you're carving, the dust from the ice can get stuck in the wings and the detail, and generally, time will melt them out. But if you're in a contest that you don't necessarily have the time, so you want to clean it up
Right.
before your piece is judged. Again, we did it as a contest years ago in Newport, many different places, down on the wharfs, in the marketplaces, depending on who was sponsoring and what was going on over the years. It's moved a little bit around, but it's always downtown, where people that are out, enjoying Winterfest can go get something to eat, have a coffee, come watch us do the carvings. I mean, over the past couple of years, there's been 2 or 3 people that come down. Myself, almost every year. Not every year. I've missed a couple over the years for whatever reason. But this usually 2 or 3. I'm not sure who's coming this year. But there was points with the contest when they were giving away some good, $500 to $700 for as a cash prize. There was a couple of years where they were giving away plane tickets to anywhere in the continental U.S. There was some pretty nice awards when it was a contest. Now they just give us a little bit of a little payment for the day, which is fine. There's no competition involved. You're coming down there, you're relaxed. You talk to the people that come down and see. That's what I like the most. I like it when the kids, you give them a little block of ice that a scrap ice, and how many kids have seen a block of ice that weighs 10 pounds? They're running
Right.
around with daddy, look at this, look at this. So that's mostly why I do it now. It's just fun to do.
Really cool.
When I got paid to do it, I had to pack the truck, ice, insulate the carving, pack it in a truck, sometimes in the middle of the summer, and get it, 20 or 30 minutes away to a hotel or a restaurant or somebody's party. That's genuinely hard work.
Yeah, that's day labor work.
Yeah, and these things weigh, under, to the tune of about 200 pounds sometimes.
Yeah.
And they can be multiple blocks, there can be multiple pieces. So you can have a day's work cut out for you if you want to deliver one. Whereas if you just show up with your tools and you cut it in place, a little bend and a little lift, and it's not killer. It's an enjoyable thing. And if the weather is, you don't want it warm, and you really don't want it super cold either. You can, I wear, Gore-Tex stuff, because if it's warm, the dust melts and you get soaked, so you got to wear something that can keep you dry. And, you don't want to perspire in it, because it is a little bit of work. The blocks come out of the freezer raw at 300 pounds or so.
Yeah.
So you're pushing one of those guys around. I mean, again, we have foam that supports it and, makes it easy to move around. Once you know how to move these things, it's a little easier, but a 300-pound block is a 300-pound block.
There's no getting around that.
Right.
Colleen McGrath has a great profile of you in print in this week's Newport This Week. You can read that either in the print edition of the paper, wherever you get it on newsstands, or online at newportthisweek.com. You'll find it there. And there's a great photo of you that looks like you carved out some hearts with arrows right there. And
yeah, it's a few years ago, and she did send it to me. I read it. It's very flattering. I appreciate it immensely.
Well, that's always good to hear from the journal, when journalism appeals to the subject. That's a good thing. My last question this year, it is a weird winter. Maybe this is the new norm in terms of the temperature, in terms of a lack of snow, and so on and so forth. So as an ice sculptor, somebody who, look, let's be honest, it's new Winterfest, it's abnormal. What's your take on that?
Hey, I know global warming is a thing, whether we're responsible for it or nature's responsible, or a little combination of the two, probably more the truth. It is warmer in the winter. I was spent a long part of my life as an avid skier. I went to school in Vermont in the Culinary Institute, and it's something to think about it. Nowadays, I do more kayaking and fishing than I do anything else, so I'm not going to whine too loud. Like I said, I'm probably going to go kayaking this afternoon or tomorrow morning and try and catch some fish or something. I live in Mass, fish season, trout season's year round. So that's one of my other passions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I basically, when you're doing carving like this, and you got to think, the weather's the weather. It is what it is. You have to plan around it.
Hmm.
If it's super freezing cold out, you can do certain details that you can't do when it's warm. I honestly, really, one of the guys that helped taught me after school was this guy, William Kovitz out of New York, who does a lot of the hotels. He's a world champion carver. He's won all over the world. And, I've helped him carve. But really, the only reason I ever beat the guy was he didn't change his plan. He did a detailed carving with small pieces. And before he got judged, it fell apart. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
mine was a little blockier, a little bigger, but it stood. It stood. It was there was a snow-filled logo I did from one of the winter festivals of years past. It was the snowflake on the. But anyways, I did the snowflake of the winter festival logo on a
Yep.
pedestal with a plaque, and it stood and it was fine. Whereas he did, if I can remember correctly, something with wings, and one of the wings came off and fell and it broke, and it was yeah, and I like Billy, man. He taught me a lot, and I liked working with the guy. And I felt bad. I want to see their carving come out to the best. And if
Right.
I can beat him that way, so it's kind of I won. Winning is winning. It
That's right.
counts. It counts, right? But that being said, yeah, if he would have changed his plan, man, but he didn't. That's his own fault,
That's
and
right.
that's
It's like,
why. Yeah.
just like football or anything else in competition. It's the strategy and the understanding of the elements that's going to
Right.
dictate your outcome.
You got to adapt.
Yeah,
Or not. But yeah,
absolutely.
that was pretty satisfying. That was one of those things we did. I got the plane tickets that year. So
Nice. Sean Skelly, he's an ice sculptor, a fixture of Newport Winterfest. And thanks for spending some time with us today. Again, you can read a great profile inside the newspaper this week. And hey, let's hope that whatever elements there are this year, you're adapting, whether it's 90 degrees out or 20 degrees.
all right, thank you. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure.